Welcome to episode 24 of Downloadable Brain. How are you guys doing on this Monday morning? It's March 10th, 2025. I'm doing well. It's me, your guy Brain44, and today I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. I don't want to waste any time or beat around the bush. As a person who has often felt like I wasn't being treated fairly and being judged very poorly by people throughout my life, I've come to understand now that moving forward is an important step towards growth, and living in the past is no way to improve. However, I believe so many things have been done wrong, not only to me but to others, that it has disgraced and dishonored and brought shame to the spirit of my grandfather who is now passed over. It seems like everything my grandfather ever wanted for me or for anybody else was not what went down. And I won't get into specifics. All I'm going to say is that God doesn't miss anything. When our loved ones cross over, do you feel like they're watching over us and protecting us? I choose to believe that they are. Something inside of me changed recently, and I had an epiphany. All these things I'm doing with music and the whole podcast was always just about working on myself and bouncing back from hardships and injustices purposely done to me throughout my life. But now I'm just choosing to see things a little bit differently. I feel so uneasy about the foundation my grandfather built being totally disrespected and dishonored. It bothers my spirit so much that I'm ready to serve the spirit of my passed over grandfather in order to honor him, to bring justice and respect on the spirit of my grandfather. So it's no longer like I'm defending myself, and it's no longer like I'm trying to prove a point. Now I'm actually serving the spirit of my grandfather in order to honor him. I feel like I've been called to do this, and it definitely changes the way I choose to see things going forward. I'm not going to joke around in today's episode because it's a subject I take very seriously. I really loved and respected my grandfather a lot. We never got to see each other too often because I come from somewhat of a dysfunctional family, and for whatever reason it just wasn't a normal, healthy dynamic where we got together on a regular basis. All I can say is whenever I saw my grandfather at these occasional family get-togethers, I felt as if most people in my family don't give a shit about me, and my grandfather seemed to genuinely care and be interested in how I was doing. I loved him a great deal, even though I didn't know him that well. He had a really good sense of humor, and I noticed he was just generally a happy person who joked around with everybody. But he had his own way with everybody. Even though I didn't get to see him much or even talk to him too often, whenever I did, I felt like he truly loved and cared for me. And I feel like if my grandfather was watching over me right now, that he would only want good things for me. The thing is, not everybody in my family does, and I believe as a spiritual person, I feel like if my grandfather is watching over, that the actions being taken regarding others inside of my family bloodline have totally disgraced and dishonored the spirit of my grandfather. So when somebody else within my family marries into a wicked family, you didn't just betray me by turning your back on me if you decide to come against me. You totally disrespected and dishonored the legacy of my grandfather by choosing to do what it is that you do. And people who have children and raise them to also become wicked create even more damage to the legacy that my grandfather left behind. That's how I choose to see it, and I feel like my grandfather's pissed about it. That's what I'm picking up on a spiritual level. My grandfather was a hardworking man who built a strong foundation. He was a man of faith. He wasn't shy about his beliefs and his faith, and he lived a good life. I wish he was still here today so that I could tell him what a great man he is and how sorry I am that we never really got to spend more time together. But I feel him with me right now. I feel the spirit of my grandfather watching over me and walking with me through the trials and tribulations of life. And I feel like the spirit of my grandfather is saying, don't you dare lay down for anybody. Don't you dare back off an inch. You pursue your passion and you chase your dreams full force, not seeking out the approval or validation of anybody. If people within our own family start wishing bad things for us, it's a disgrace to the spirit of my grandfather, and I rebuke their wishes. In honor of my grandfather, I rebuke them. When those within my family also bring dishonor to his name, I bring dishonor to theirs as well, and I rebuke it. Nobody will stop me from being successful. Does it mean I'm going to become this huge rock star and go on television? Absolutely not, because that's not my idea of success anyways. And I feel like if I agreed to doing anything like that, even agreeing to play the same sort of games that people on television play, I would be dishonoring the spirit of my grandfather if I ever sold out. I would be bringing shame to the spirit of my grandfather, a hard-working man who built a strong foundation. I really question how a good man who worked hard all of his life, had faith, did his best to raise his children properly, could build this strong foundation and have people totally shame and dishonor his legacy by choosing to be very selfish, envious, deceptive, and evil. That's the complete opposite of the man I knew and grew up with. My grandfather was never that way, but I loved him very much. As we do this episode today of Downloadable Brain, let it just be noted that from this point forward, I'm going to use every ounce of my being. I'm going to use every bit of talent I have and my spiritual gifts to honor the legacy of my passed over grandfather. I know my grandfather loved me, and I know my grandfather would only want good things for me. Even though he's not with us anymore on this earth, I do feel his spirit within me. My grandfather didn't have an evil side to him. I never once sensed that about him. I aspire to become more like my grandfather and less like the father I grew up with. I'm going to end the podcast there. I just wanted to make an episode to pay my respects and to let it be known I will honor my grandfather's legacy, especially when others choose to dishonor him by defying his wishes.